Welcome to Encountering Christ, a podcast about meeting Jesus in the ordinary moments of life, learning how to invite others into those encounters, and exploring practical ways to recognize Christ at work in our daily rhythms. Our prayer is that this time helps you see and share Christ more clearly. In this episode, we continue our look at the sinful nature. It's a humbling experience, yet it's one of the healthiest activities for all of us. As we've discussed before, we are taught as Americans that we are basically good people, and we're tending toward believing what has been taught. We also tend toward having the belief that we do more good things than bad things, and this is killing us in our relationship with God because we're then set up to buy into the lie that we don't really need God, certainly not every minute of every day. And why? Because we've got this sin thing mostly handled. We don't see our true struggle. However, when you start taking a deeper look into the sinful nature, you start to see it. Now, thus far, we've looked at 9 different aspects of the sinful nature or sins that we commit on a regular basis. My source for all of this is the Bible, as it has been laid out in the Systematic Theology, which was compiled by Daniel Aiken. That book is entitled A Theology for the Church. So, that being said, today let's explore more of the sinful nature by adding in 3 more sins that we all commit. The first is what we're going to call missing the mark. It's a general term for any sin that we commit that isn't consistent with the nature of God. It is also the most common word used with regard to sin in the Bible. In the Hebrew or Old Testament, the word is cheta. In the New Testament, the Greek word used is hamartano. Now, right off the bat, we may misunderstand what is meant. When this talks about missing the mark, it isn't saying it from a standpoint of misfiring. For example, if you're playing darts and aiming for the center and you miss the mark, you were trying to get it right, you just failed. That isn't what the word means. Hamartano is deliberately aiming at a wrong mark and shooting for it. It is the intentional missing of the mark because you deliberately chose a different mark. It isn't about the fact that hitting the mark is hard. It is about the fact that you chose a different target to shoot at. That being said, missing the mark is mostly used as a general term for all of a person's sins. For example, Romans 3:25, God presented him, that being Christ, as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood. He did this to demonstrate his justice because in his forbearance he had left the sins, the missing of the mark, committed beforehand unpunished. In general, we deliberately choose a different goal, the wrong goal, and our sins pile up as a result. The love of self above the love of God is the wrong goal. Seeking to enhance myself above others is the wrong goal. Our sins pile up in heaps all around us as a result. Lucifer had the same problem. He sought to elevate himself above God. Therefore, with that as his goal, the sins just started piling up. The piles and heaps of sins and missing the mark that surround us all are the size of the pyramids in Egypt. And it isn't just one. The heaps of daily sins are enormous and all around us all. And without Christ, they stand there condemning us to an eternity without God. But with Christ, our piles are reduced to nothing. The reason we don't understand the justice of God is because we are ignorant of the piles of intentional sin that surround us without Christ. But with Christ, all of the piles of sin that we would be adding to every day are wiped away. Now, let me tell you what is truly mind-boggling. That God would lay on his Son the iniquity and sin of us all. The amount of grace that it takes to wipe our slate clean is way beyond what we deserve or even understand. Therefore, rejecting the free gift of cleansing that comes through the cross of Jesus Christ is the ultimate sin, as it is the ultimate proclamation of our rejection of the goodness of God. That is the ultimate missing of the mark. The next sin we're all guilty of is the sin of perversion. Now, when I use the word perverted, it is important to understand it from what is meant in the Bible versus what we mean when we say it today. The Hebrew word awa means bent or twisted. Proverbs 12:8 says it plainly in the ESV. A man is commended according to his good sense, but one of twisted mind is despised. One of twisted mind is despised. If you were to take a rubber hose that is intended for water to run through and bend it to the degree that it is crimped, what would happen? Well, water could no longer get through. Now, let's say that you are this hose and the goodness of God is running through you as the image of God is stamped on your soul. But your mind is so set on something wrong that it crimps, it distorts your ability to see the truth. It is so bent that the truth is shut off. Worldviews are, by nature, designed specifically to cut off the competition of other truths. Atheism is the most obvious worldview that cuts off any thought of God from the beginning. The beginning of the Enlightenment bore the seeds of so many different worldviews that are perverted, because if I start with the premise, I think, therefore I am, I'm starting with the premise that understanding can only begin by looking at myself. And that premise has opened the door for all kinds of perverted worldviews: atheism, materialism, hedonism, or to put it into more recognizable words, the idea that life is about what I can attain and what I can enjoy or what I can get out of it, that life is about me. These worldviews, as well as many others, are perversions that will cut off any thought or true understanding about God. They bind us from God because they cut off the thought of Him. They bind us by keeping us from even considering that God is present, as they bind us to the reality of the eternal and spiritual world that surrounds us all. We Americans are eaten up with this particular sin. The reason we struggle to see God all around us and in us is because we have cut off even the consideration of the possibility that God is present with us even now. It is perversion. It is a bending or twisting of the truth of God to the degree that we are unable to see Him. Truly, America and the Western world and communist world, and truly the entire world, is eaten up with the sin of perversion. Our cultures have taught us to live our lives and to think in such a way as to dismiss or cut off the obvious reality of the existence of God. We have been taught perversion. Our minds and hearts are twisted in many other ways, but let's move on to a third aspect of our sinful nature for today, and that is rebellion. In Hebrew, the word is pesha, and in the Greek, the word is apatheia. It is a willful revolt against God's authority. Let me give you some examples from the Bible. Isaiah 1:2. Hear, O heavens, listen, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I reared children and brought them up, but they rebelled against me. In other words, they have said, I reject what you taught me. And in the New Testament, Ephesians 5:6 says this: let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things, God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. In both cases, it is a purposeful rejection and revolt against what we know to be true, the law of God, which is written on our hearts. In other words, we know what we're supposed to do, and we simply don't want to do it. We know that it is good to share the gospel with our neighbor and others, but we don't want to do it. We know that it's good to read and study the Bible, but we don't want to do it. We innately know that loving God with all our heart is the right thing to do, but we simply don't want to do it. For every human, the list is lengthy of the things that we know that we should do, but we don't want to do it. We are a rebellious people. By the way we live our lives, we know what we ought to do, and for many of us, we want to do what is right, but we cannot seem to carry it out. This is the frustration of our sinful nature that Paul recognized in himself at the end of Romans 7. He said this: I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do. And if I do what I don't want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. We may want to do what is right because we know that it is right, but for whatever reason, we cannot carry it out. And why not? Because it is in our sinful nature to resist and rebel against the goodness of God, even when we know that He is right. Just like the lost world that knows what is right because it's written on their hearts, just like us, they will still not do what they know to be right. Why? Because we are truly a rebellious people. We miss the mark. We are perverted in our thinking and rebellious in our actions. And I hope you see what I'm up to here. I am, without reservation, seeking to prove that we are not good people. We are not basically good, intrinsically good, or even mostly good. The reality is that we miss the mark constantly. We are perverted in our thinking and rebellious in our actions. Were it not for the blood of Christ and the grace of God, we would all receive the justice of God, which would separate us from Him forever. Praise be to God, who has provided us salvation for us all. God bless.